Hello everyone, thank you for joining me for another TLDR video. I am your host Voodoo Pickles, and today we're going to be talking about Tender is the Flesh. So this book was written by Augustina Bazterrica. I'm so sorry, that's probably not right, but yeah, Bazterrica. And this book is very interesting. It takes place in a futuristic dystopian type world where what it would happen if all of the animals were infected with some type of virus that could also be transferred to humans, and all of these animals with this virus would have to be killed. And therefore, there's no meat for humans to consume. And how would the government respond to that? The solution in this world for creating meat for humans to eat, because the humans were not happy with the meat alternatives that they had, was to legalize cannibalism. And so that's the kind of world that we're living in. And we are introduced to Marcos. Marcos is our main character. And when the government switched to humans, he switched from he was going to be a veterinarian, but there was no more animals anymore. So being a veterinarian wouldn't work. So he was hired by the government to help create codes for these new humans that were going to be cannibalized to be properly treated like you would have any other form of cattle for the meat industry. There are certain codes that these places would have to go through to produce edible meat products. And so he started creating all of these type of codes for it, and then years later he stopped doing that because all of the codes were there and he didn't want to be an inspector. So he ends up working at a slaughterhouse for humans. And Marcus has a wife named Celia, and they were happily married until she was pregnant and she lost the baby. They lost their baby. And when that happened, she had a mental breakdown, and so she left Marcos to go live with her family for a while, and they're not getting a divorce or anything. She's just saying that she can't go back to him right at this minute. And so he's really upset that she's not there, but he understands that he needs to give her some time. So she's with her, hi Percy, she's with her mother. And so when they lost their son, he stopped eating all forms of meat. He stopped eating. He became a vegetarian. And he works for a slaughterhouse, and he oversees a lot of the different things. And a part of his responsibilities is he has to go visit customers of the slaughterhouse, and he has to talk with them, make sure that their needs are being met, make sure if there's any issues that he can address them, and kind of sell them on more a little bit. And he meets a bunch of different type of customers. He meets a tanner who tells him that he needs to make sure that the skins that are being sent are not damaged in any way, and gives him a book of preferable types of skins. He goes to one of the other clients is a scientist, like a laboratory that does experiments on these humans. And so he meets all of these different types. There's all different types of clients that he has. Percy, stop it. There's all different types of clients that he has to meet, and he does not like meeting them. And we get to hear his internal monologue of their backstories and why he doesn't like them. But it's a part of his job, and he has to do it like once a quarter. So he's like, I just got to get this done. And the process takes like a whole week or two. And while he's done with this, when he's like almost done with this, he goes back to his home and he receives a delivery. And he's just like, I didn't order anything. What are you doing here? Because he lives in like an old farmland area, kind of off past the suburbs of this where he's living. And one of his clients has gifted him a female human for consumption. And he calls the client and he's like, what is this? What are you even doing with this? And the client's like, oh, well, this is a little thank you gift, is a little like thank you for being you type thing. This is a gift. And he's like, this is one of our genetically modified females. And he's like, well, I don't want it. Come take it back. And he hasn't told anybody that he's a vegetarian and he's not eating meat, because that would be a weird thing for him to say. And he doesn't want that kind of attention. So a person's like, well, I'm not taking it back. He's like, so you can sell it, you can eat it, or do whatever. I don't care. I send it to you. It's there. And so he doesn't want to have this female around. And so he decides to keep her in the barn. Puts her in the barn. She has a rope around her neck, and he ties it like to one of the little like stable areas, and he brings her water, and he tries to get her some food, and he's like, all right, I'll have to make a mental note to find out what feed pellets she's on so I can pick some up. And he's like, while I figure out what to do. And so he's like, I can't deal with this right now. Keeps her in the barn and continues to go around doing his rounds on the job, and then goes back to the slaughterhouse. And the slaughterhouse, he is introducing 2 new prospective employees in the slaughterhouse, and he has a weird feeling about one of them. And so we are taken through the whole process of how they process human meat for consumption at this slaughterhouse. And it's very interesting and fascinating. And I listened to this on an audiobook, so I was listening to all of these descriptions of it while I was at work. And I was like, this is very descriptive. This is very descriptive. And he finds out that one of them is he finds out that one of them snuck a camera into the tour that he was taking them on, and he takes them on these tours to evaluate how they are on the job. If they're too eager to work there and they're too eager to see what happens to these humans, then he doesn't hire them. He doesn't feel that they're a good fit. If they can't sit through the whole tour without fainting or something, he's like, well, I don't think you're going to work out here. So he's trying to look for somebody in the middle. And one of the people in this he's really eager. He's really excited. He was like, when do I get to see this happen? When do I get to see this part happen? Are we going to get to see that? Can I do that? And so when they get towards the end of the tour, he kind of pushes this guy up against the wall, and a phone falls out. And so he's just like, all right, this guy was filming this whole process, and tells security that this guy needs to be taken out. His camera needs to be destroyed, because they signed legal documentation that they would not record anything in there. So, and he's really annoyed with this. And on his way home, he stops by a zoo. This zoo is one of the favorite places that he used to go with his father. His father has a degenerative disease and is in a nursing home that he pays for, and he visits his father once a week and to see how he's doing. But his dad has also started to break out of the nursing home, so he's being called by the nurses all the time. And now they're telling him that they'll probably have to start locking him up or tying him to the bed if he will not stop trying to escape. And so he visits the zoo. He used to visit it with his dad. Now it's abandoned, obviously. And he goes inside one of the times that he's visiting, and he hears something off in the distance, and he's like, what is that? What is that? And he finds in a room that there's puppies there. So he starts playing with the puppies. He's like, I remember puppies. And he starts playing with them, and they're there. And before the mother starts coming back, after he hears the mother start to come back and start growling and getting aggressive with them, and he leaves, and he feels a lot better after seeing the puppies. And he feels upset that that puppies aren't around anymore. You don't see them very often. And so he continues to work, and he visits his dad, and he has to do a visit with his sister that he feels obligated to do once every now and then, which is a dinner. And his sister invited him to this dinner, and she's trying to talk to him about his work, which is odd. She like never does that. And he's just like, what is going on here? After a while, he figures out that she's having a special refrigerator slash storage room installed in her house so she can keep live human beings in her house and cut off parts of them to eat. So, and she's talking to him and she's trying to kind of schmooze him a little bit so she can get a discount on some human people. He figures that out and decides to leave. Like, he's disgusted by his sister. He's like, no, I'm leaving. And he's under a lot of stress and he's really upset and anxious, and all of these things are kind of compounding all at once. And he goes back to his house and he goes to the barn and he started drinking. Before he went to the barn, he's like, I have to make sure the thing is clean in the barn. And he washes her off, and when he ends up washing her off, he is a little drunk. He ends up having sex with her. And he wakes up in the morning hungover a little bit, and she's curled up in his arms. And he realizes what he's done, and he puts her back in the barn, but he doesn't stop himself. And so he ends up doing this on a regular basis. And then this human female who was bred for human consumption gets pregnant. He removes her from the barn and brings her into the house. And so he creates this room where she can be. And it's kind of like a padded room, but not really. But he creates a room for her so she can be in that room while he's asleep or out or whatever. And he just kind of keeps her there. And then during one of the days, the nurses call him and tell him that his father has passed away. So he has to do all of the funeral type arrangements, which he's like, we don't need a memorial event. I just need my father cremated. I'll be there. We'll watch. This is because he has to visually see that his father's being cremated, because there was a big issue with people selling the cadavers of other people. So he's doing all of this stuff, and his sister decides that she is so heartbroken that the dad that she used to know is gone. So she's like, I need to make a whole memorial service. And she makes this all about her, and he's upset with it. He's annoyed with it. And he decides that he's going to take his dad's ashes and he's going to go spread them. She tries to stop him, makes a big deal in front of all the people, and he tells her that she needs to let him go, or else he's going to tell all of these people what she's really like and what her last few years with his father were like, which was and so she lets him go, takes the ashes and go. He decides that he's just going to spread the ashes at the abandoned zoo. And he goes to the abandoned zoo, he spreads the ashes, and then he hears noises. He hears a lot of noises. He goes, and this is a really big trigger warning for animal abuse. So if you can't handle that, then I'll put a timestamp or whatever for how later it is. And so you can skip it. And so he goes into the zoo, he spreads his father's ashes, and then he hears noises, and he goes towards where the puppies were. And there was about 3 or 4 puppies. And he goes towards there and he hears teenagers or voices. So they're human voices. He goes and he looks and he sees teenagers, and these teenagers are antagonizing the puppies, poking them with sticks, and also laughing at each other and breaking glass and just be hoodlumish. And then they start to beat the puppies with a bat that they have. And they start to play baseball with the puppies as baseballs. It was really tough to listen to. That was the only part in this book that I was just like, so they do that. And when they do that, Marcus doesn't intervene or anything like that. He leaves, and he kind of hopes that the adult dogs will be there to kind of take care of them. But one of the puppies does bite one of the teenagers, and now they start freaking out that the virus that has killed all of the animals is going to infect him and that he's going to die. And so they start freaking out, and Marcus leaves. He leaves the zoo, and he is just really upset. He goes home, and when he goes home, he gets a knock on the door from the inspector. There are inspectors in this world that go to all of the homes with living human beings made for consumption in them to check on those human beings to make sure that they're being treated the way the human beings made for consumption are supposed to be treated, based on the codes and policies that Marcus helped write. So he has been getting away with not having these inspectors see the girl that he has in his home by knowing the person who was in charge of the inspector. They worked on codes and did inspections together when this first law was enacted. So he had this person just pretty much sign off for him. So he didn't actually have to see this person. The inspector would show up, he would tell them who he was, and they're like, oh, can you just sign this form then? He would sign it, they'd leave. And this person is just like, well, that guy's not there anymore. And so he calls that guy, and it turns out that guy got a promotion. And so he tells the inspector, nah, this guy's good. He would never do anything that was untoward these humans made for consumption. And so he signs the form, the inspector leaves, and he goes off about his day. At this point, the woman is about 8 months pregnant, and then it comes around time for him to do all of these client inspections or meet and greets again. And while he's at one of these clients, the client is a hunting game reserve owner who uses these humans for game purposes, and people, they hunt them down. And while he's at the dinner with this guy doing his visit, he has cameras set up in his house to check on this woman to make sure she's not doing anything that would hurt her or the baby. And so he looks on one of these cameras, and he sees her on the ground, and it looks like she's trying to scream, and she's grabbing her belly, and it looks like she's in a lot of pain. Marcus realizes that she is in labor, and he heads back home to try and help her. When he gets there, he realizes that he can't really help her. So he calls Celia, his wife, who is a nurse. He calls her and he tells her that she needs to get to the house immediately, and that there's somebody in pain and he needs to help, and that he knows nobody else who can help her. So she shows up. She sees that there is a human made for human consumption in labor on his bed, and she's trying to question him, and he's like, I don't have time to answer your questions right now. We need to make sure this is okay. She's fine. She's giving him all of these disgusted looks and everything, and they deliver the baby. When they deliver the baby, he has her hold it, and he cuts the umbilical cord and everything, and he's just like, okay. And she's holding the baby, and she wants to yell at him, but she's mesmerized by this baby, and he tells her that this is their baby, that he did this for them, and this will be their baby. And she wants to be upset, but she's so mesmerized by this child, because after they lost their son, she was told by the doctors that she will never have a child. So he's like, this is our baby. And she is excited that this is their baby, but she's just staring at this little baby, and she's just holding him, ignoring everything else in that room. And at this time, the woman who gave birth is on the bed, and she's trying to grasp at Celia to get her baby. And she's trying to talk, except these humans were, I don't know if they cut out all of their tongues or if they were genetically modified to have no tongue. I forgot. It said specifically in the book which one, but she doesn't have a tongue. And then they started cutting out their vocal cords, so she can't talk. And she's trying to sign that that's her baby, because Marcus has been teaching her kind of how to sign to interact with her a little bit. And she's starting to freak out and trying to grasp at Marcus and Celia to get her baby. And then Marcus holds her a little bit and starts going, shh, shh, shh. And then he takes out a gun that they use at the slaughterhouse that uses compressed air to shoot a bolt into the brain and kill the humans. So he uses that on her after she starts getting a little hysterical. And when he does that, Celia gets upset with him and she was like, what if we wanted more children? And Marcus tells her that if they want more children, they can get another one. But this one was becoming too human. And that's how the book ends. So is this a totes or nope? I gave this a 5 stars, so that's a definite totes for me. It is, I've heard from a lot of people that it is really hard to read and or listen to, and it does have a lot of explicit things. So there's definitely a lot of triggers that you should check out the trigger warnings for. I didn't obviously this is a TDLR. I didn't get into a lot of them except for the animal abuse one, but there are a lot of triggers, so definitely check the trigger warning list if that's something that you are sensitive to. That part with the animals was the only part that, like I said, that got to me a little. And everything else was just, it was beautifully written. I like how my opinion of the characters and in this book changed a lot. Like they were fluctuating a lot with how they were doing their actions with people and interactions and everything. I really enjoyed this book. There'll be the long form in-depth review posted below once I get that recorded and edited. But if you also want to get this book from your local bookstore, I'll have the link down in the description below, as well as if you want to buy it used from thrift books. And if you are in the United States, I will put the library link as well so you can get it from your library. I listened to this through an audiobook from my library, so it is definitely there. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me. I hope you guys have an amazing day, night, afternoon, whatever it is where you are. Don't forget to do the YouTube things, like and subscribe, and I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.